I've got all kinds of stuff, and I can answer questions, and I can go in any direction you guys want, and it'll go really late, so you probably don't want to do that. But you know, we talked about my website, iceboatracing.com. On the website, there's a used boat area, there's a products area where you can go to. Then there's a tuning guide, and along with the tuning guide, there's some tuning tips, as well as setup, setup direction, and just a lot of stuff that can. And I made a couple copies, and you guys are welcome to keep them. There's one in the boat, and I got two here. And I can talk a little bit about just putting your boat together and making it work. I think one of the most important things to do is to set your boat up in your yard before the season, and make sure that you make a list of everything that the boat needs, and have it done before you get ice. Because if you're trying to hunt around and get parts when there's ice, you're just missing it. You're not out on the ice, you're getting parts. That's just the wrong thing to do. So whatever you do, be prepared, have the list, and when you cross things off that list, you're gonna be pretty happy. So I just, highly suggest that. I'm just gonna go through something real quick. We've got some toys here, right? We've got, this is the latest ice boat I built for myself. I still haven't actually made it go faster than a boat that I built in 1999. But I've tried a couple different things with it. But it's kind of a pretty cool paint job. It is all wood. It looks like fiberglass because of the paint job. But it actually only has 3-ounce satin on the cockpit floor. It has some unidirectional glass run up the sides here, so that when you come around the mark and hit it with your hips, it doesn't break at the cockpit floor, which is where all the boats tend to break. And it's minimum weight boat, 46 pounds, pretty easy to transport. Arrows, Knight, Skeeters, they're all really fun. My Knight is my favorite boat I own, but at the end, one person can take it and set it up. Knight, Arrow, you need 2 people. I mean, those boats, they need 2 people to get them out of it. Great fun toys, love them, but it just depends on what direction you want to go. So, and then a couple of different runners. These are 100-degree short runners for when it's light air and soft, and you can kind of go on that. These are some 1/4-inch runners. You're welcome to come over and pick these up. I mean, you can see how thick that blade is. These are all 440C hardened to 57 Rockwell, and you take your fingernail, right off with the edge. And this is 90-degree edge. That's a 100-degree edge, and you can just see it's just sharpened to a simple edge. And you can still sharpen enough to take your nail right off. So that's kind of something. This is a plate runner. This is something, a design that I have. I kind of got from the Gujan. They call them Persian slippers, because the steel just goes through the body, and this is all carbon stiffener, and so they're super light. Size runner is 10 pounds. These are like 6 pounds. So when you have that less weight out there, you can get up on 2 runners quicker, less drag, off you go. So, but that's all for getting to top end racing. You don't necessarily really want to do that. That's fine if you're just going to get out there. But the biggest thing I wanted to press is that you're prepared. That in the summertime, you take a weekend. It's very hard to do, but set that boat up and figure out what it needs and make sure that it's completely ready to go. Because if you have ice and your boat isn't ready, you're screwed. It's a total waste of time of having it. So when the ice is right and you can sail, there's a lot of things that can stop you from sailing. Too cold, too warm, too much wind, too little wind, snow, whatever. So when it's right, please be ready. Deal I want to let you know on. And so then, if you got a boat, there's a few things that you can do to it pretty quickly to make it perform a lot better. And so the first thing I like to do is take the boat, the hull, tip it upside down, connect the plank to it, and then measure from the front chalk out to the center inside bolt on each side chalk, and make sure that the plank is square to the boat. If it's not, change something, fix it up. You can try switching the plank the other way. See if it lines up. Make sure the plank is square to the boat. First thing to do, right? And then, of course, really key thing is to make sure that your side runners are parallel too, right? And I sell fixtures for doing that. There's a lot of ways you can do it with a tape measure. You can do it with a wood stick by just making grooves, and the groove in the front, and then come to the back and see if the groove is in the same spot. You can push the boat through the snow. If there's a gap, on the side of the runner, you can see the runner's not aligned. You can loosen it, retighten it if you want. Once you get them aligned, can,
Should that be done with some weight in the boat?
that's a
Lock
really
it in, you know, pigeon toes kind of thing.
if you're just absolutely cruising, it's best to just get it close to start with. If you're absolutely racing, what I do is I've got this fixture with a string on it, and there's wedges that have a slot in the bottom, so the runners sit on this fixture without touching the edge, so it doesn't, you know, mess up your highly, you know, honed edge. And what I do is I put the mast in the boat and then tighten the rig so the plank is deflected about, tighten the side stays, so the plank is deflected about the skipper's weight plus 30 pounds, because that simulates light air. If you go, you know, once you're sailing and it's heavy air, the weather runner's pretty much always off the ice. Alignment is important. I think, personally, that when alignment is most important is light air downwind. Skipper's weight plus 30 pounds. So just, and why I like doing it, there's some people put weight in the boat, but that puts extra friction on the fixtures when you're trying to do the alignment. And then if you gotta lift it back up and take a runner off and shim it, you know, put some Teflon tape on the side of the runner to make sure that it's parallel. You can, if the chocks are fixed, you can shim the runners with some Teflon tape. That kind of stuff, you know, it's really a pain in the butt if you got to take the weights all off and then put the weights all back on. So I do it simply by tightening the rig, and I've done it for years and had a fair amount of success with it. So I think that's a lot easier way to do it. Actually, what I did was I took a 2x4 that's from the hound to the base, and I have a mast step on it, and I have just a eye-bolt through the 2x4, and I use that tightening rig because that way I can fit in the garage or in my shop. You know, if the mast is 16 feet tall, it's one thing, but if it just goes to the hound, you can use a standard set of shrouds and then just tighten the rig so the plank is deflected, you know, to your weight plus just a little bit, and off you go. I think that's a very, very, very easy way to do it. And, you know, if you're going to race at the top level, first thing you're going to want to do is get your runners right, right? So some people have come and brought their runners over to me. So the first thing I do when I get a set of runners from one of you guys is I make sure they're straight. I have a straight edge, very simple. I put it in a workmate that holds it up. I don't tighten the workmate because I don't want the workmate to change if the runner's straight or not. Just set it in the workmate and then take a straight edge side to side and see if it rocks. So whole side, see if the straight edge rocks. If it rocks, there's a few ways to fix it. I mean, if it's a plate runner, a Sarn's plate runner are only flame hardened at the very bottom. You can just take some blocks of wood and a C-clamp and kind of tighten up a little bit and look and get the run. If it, you know, you don't want to go beyond, you want to just kind of count how many turns you do till you get the runner kind of straight. And you can do the same thing even with a wood body runner. You can kind of deflect the runner and then measure it, deflect the runner and measure it, go a little further and try to get the runner straight. First thing, get the runner straight. Then check the profile. These runners have 100 degrees and they have 15 inches of 8/1000 flat. I have an I-beam that I took to a grinder and had, I think we're getting too technical here, but anyway, I got a straight edge, basically a ground I-beam, and I have a center line which I use with a bolt, and I set it on there. And what I do is I use 8/1000 shim, which is basically the thickness of a business card, and you bring it in from the front, and bring it in from the back. And this one will have 8 inches in the front and 7 inches in the back, so it comes out to 15 inches, and it has a constant arc. The slowest thing you can ever have is a hollow. If you put on a straight edge and there's a hollow in there, that's really slow. Really slow. So these runners have 15 inches, these runners have 18 inches, plate runners have 11 inches. And I make sure first they're straight, then I put the profile on them I want, and then I stone them, and I got stones which I sell and to hone the edge, and I round the fronts and backs. You can see how round these things are in the front and back. And that's because I stood on my runner plank in light air and watched my runner go over the ice. And when it hits a bump and kicks up, if your runner is sharp in the back end, it just is a point digging into the ice. It's a total break. And if your runner is sharp in the front and it hits a little crack in the ice or something, it tries to push the front of the runner over to the crack. So if you have it nice and round in the front, it just kind of pops over the crack. It doesn't jerk yourself over. Just simple. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I just have done simple things to try to, you know, it's just easy. But yeah, so then get the runner profile right, get it stoned, get the edge, and then you check your alignment. because it's very easy to have the runner edge not be on the very center of the runner. So after you get the runner, profiled right, that's when you check your alignment. You don't check the runners and then go do your, put it on the machine and sharpen it, because it's going to move the edge a little bit and your alignment might not. Determine that out of all the factors, the number one thing is decreasing the angle of the shrouds to the head stay, because that increases the compression load on the mast. So if you want the mast to bend more, the easiest thing to do is loosen the rig. So the mast goes over sideways, then the compression loads are added, multiplied, because the angles of the head stay and side stays are tighter to the mast, and that'll pop the mast out. If you want the mast to bend less, you tighten the rig. So, and then like with the old rigs and stuff, I mean, the mast goes wow, wow. I mean, it goes way over, and that works just fine. Actually, at the North Americans this year, we had some refrozen ice, and my rig was just hand tight. I did not have to pull the rig over or anything like that. It was just, and when I stood on the plank, the rig was completely loose, because the plank deflects. So the older rigs, I mean, the biggest thing is just having the rig loose. I raced Renegades, slightly bigger. You saw those Renegades in the picture there. And I had this Renegade, and the whole time I'm sailing, it's sailing in a constant broach. And I'm like, and the back end is like sliding out the whole time. So, and I'm thinking DM. So what I moved the mast step forward, get the center of effort forward, try to get the whole thing to go into an equal slide, And I never did worth a shit, I couldn't figure it out. Raced with my dad against my dad, and he's just, he was just gone, especially in light air, but even in the heavy air, I just didn't have it figured out. So I'm up in Harbor Springs, and Buddy Melgus is there. And I'm like, Buddy, you got any ideas about tuning the Renegades? I was like, the whole time I sail the thing, it's in a constant broach, and it makes me crazy. I don't. He says, well, Ron, he says, did you ever try loosening the rig? I said, well, yeah, I tried doing this. I tried. Loosening the rig? He says, yeah, you got to get that mast going a little more sideways. I'm like, huh? And I let my side stays looser. I mean, in a Renegade, the rig really goes side to side. And they've got diamond shrouds that keep the mast from overbending, and I have those pretty loose. And son of a gun, once I started loosening the rig, I was able to bring the mast step back to the normal position, and I won the World Championships. But I'm like, oh yeah, I so it's great to ask the old guys. No offense, Doug. And see what you can learn. But yeah, the mast step forward decreases the angle head stay, makes the mast bend more. Loosening the rig makes the mast bend more. If you want to stop the mast from bending so much, you just do the opposite. And, it's pretty simple. One of the big things too is the mast is softer in the side-to-side axis and the fore and aft axis. So if the mast rotates, it's pulling on the side-to-side axis. When you pull on the main sheet and the mast goes forward, takes all the luff curve out of the sail and really flattens the sail quickly. Sometimes you may want that. Most times, though, what you want to do is pull back on the boom so the mast derotates, and now the mast pops out sideways and doesn't take all the luff curve out of the sail. And by matching the leech twist with the luff twist, the boats just go faster and faster than they've ever gone before. Pull back on the boom, that derotates the mast, makes all the difference in the world. I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, we pull back on the boom all the time. And that was another big thing in the Renegade, too, is pulling back on the boom so the mast wasn't rotating and taking all the luff curve, because those sails start out pretty flat at the beginning. Pulling back on the boom, derotates the mast, then the mast pops out sideways and it lines up with leech. When I was sailing Tomahawk J44 with TK Lowry for years and years, Fraser McKenzie put the mast together one year, and he didn't tighten the set screws on the spreader caps, right? And we went out sailing, and the one side of the boat, the spreader cap, the cups turned, so the lowers were outside of the uppers, and the mast had a 18-inch, deflection to leeward on port tack. Well, on port tack, with the mast sagged to leeward like that, we were so fast upwind that Wally Cross keel hauled the guy during the race on Renegade. So So I think that side-to-side thing works. Can I really explain it? It just kind of matches up with the twist of the leech, and somehow it works, much better.